Okay, everyone. So in the previous videos, we started talking about how do I actually research for which rehab facility or nursing home am I going to be going after. And, like I said, typically, I look at the star rating. That's one thing. At the same time as I make sure I look further into the company before we start, attacking them. So now that we know more about the facility, now we know about, what insurance they're taking. So more likely it's all the insurances. But now also we know more about how many beds they have, how many potential discharges they have every weekend. Those are a really good base for us, but we want to be able to take our research even further. Okay, now a lot of you guys may be thinking right now, Michael, I'm spending a lot of time doing this is too much time. But like I said, if you can have a good base of information about these facilities, it makes it easier for you to be able to dive in and jump into these facilities. So other than knowing about the facility itself, now we're going to dive a little bit more deeper. And that is actually knowing the people that we need to know about within the facility. Okay, so let's discuss about the few people or managers or the people that we want to be able to look into. So first things first is the administrator. So like I said, on most state government websites that's in charge of licensing for these nursing homes and rehab facilities, you should be able to get the name of the administrator for that particular facility. And the reason for that is, an administrator has to be approved by the state to say that they are actually the ones that can work in this facility. They have to be licensed by the state. There is a state licensing that they have to actually obtain. So the administrator is typically looked at as the CEO of this particular organization. Okay. Now, there are a lot of rehab facilities that are under an umbrella of a corporation, where a corporation owns multiple rehab facilities and nursing homes. Like if you go to Illinois, one of the famous ones over there is the Alden Communities. If you go, for example, to Florida, you have the Consulate facilities, and some of these, these organizations, these companies actually own multiple nursing homes in a variety of different states. So it just all depends, but it can go from a large corporation such as that to pretty much almost a mom and pop organization where a family owns one facility. Okay, so I've actually worked at a facility before where the administrator is the owner of the company. His brother is the assistant administrator who also owns a part of the company. The administrator's wife was the DON. Okay, so it was a real family dynamic type of a business. So it could be either small companies like that or large, conglomerates. Okay. So the administrator is somebody typically that is the head of this company, but that doesn't mean that he or she makes all the major decisions for this company. That doesn't mean that he or she determines who should be working within the organization, such as which home health agencies or home care companies they should actually refer to. The next person under the administrator is the director of nursing, who's typically in charge of the nursing department and providing care for the patients within the organization. Typically, the DON is somebody that doesn't make any decisions on where the patient should be referred to outside the facility. They pretty much worry about the patients within the organizations. Okay. Now, the social worker is pretty much the person or the main person we want to actually target within the company, because a social worker handles everything for the patients internally when they come in, at the same time as starts handling the whole facilitation of getting the patient back to real life. Okay, so the social worker can also be / the discharge planner. Some facilities have one social worker discharge planner. Other facilities have multiple social workers, or has a social worker who handles the interior part of the company and has a social worker / discharge planner that handles, the discharges of the patients or the follow-up of these patients. So this is the one person that we definitely want to be able to be targeting. Now, the next person, a lot of marketers don't even think about or talk about, but it has actually showed a lot of promise for me when I'm marketing to companies, and that is the therapy manager, whoever's in charge of the therapy. And the reason for that is because in the home health industry, therapy is such a big thing. And so if you can reach out to the therapy manager and show him that, you know what, our agency has a good therapy program, you can actually influence this person to start thinking that when they're having their meetings or discharge meetings for a particular patient, that they can say, hey, I spoke to this one agency, they're really strong in regards to therapy, and so they can become what we call an internal power partner for you. And if you're having problems trying to get into the facility, you can try to reach out to somebody that would know the same pain that you're facing, and that's their sales, either the sales manager, the sales team, or the sales marketer. And the reason for that is they are actually out there and they understand the feeling of actually having problems getting patients. And by you linking up with them and try to team up with them and create a power partner relationship where maybe you can get them into facilities that they haven't been to, or they're having problems too, or maybe you can join together and come up with great ideas and a great partnership. So that's a really good thing to be able to start looking into. The next thing is the physicians. The physicians are typically not in the facility, and what's funny is a lot of the physicians don't even see their patients. They see their patients maybe once when they get admitted or once a month after that, and that's pretty much all that they kind of do. And so the physicians would be somebody that you want to find out who they are so that maybe you can reach out to them outside of the facility. And the reason for that is because most physicians, if they're actually providing services for a patient in this facility, more likely they're also participating and working with other facilities as well. So it's a good person that can actually connect you within the internal team. Okay, so a lot of times you're going to hear these objections from social workers that they say is, what, it's the physician's decision to be able to refer a patient to home health. Now, that is true because the physician actually has to write the order for a patient to actually be referred to home health services. But the thing, though, is the physician typically normally does not choose which agency he wants it. Now, there are physicians who do exist who say, I only want to work with this home health agency. Okay, so we're just going to leave it to that, because the last thing I want you to start thinking is that, they're in cahoots with these other home health agencies. No, they have just a preferred provider because they have a good rapport with them. And I want you to try to start removing from your mindset or thinking that the physicians have a stake with these home health agencies. Do they exist where physicians own some home health agencies or is related to someone who has home health agencies? I can guarantee you and tell you, yes, they do exist, okay? But not all of them. So when a social worker says, the physician makes a decision, yes, the physician makes a decision that a patient needs home health services, but not where he decides which home health agency that they want them to go to, okay? And then the social workers or whoever is discharging a patient may say, it's the patient's decision. And you're right, it's always the patient's choice. They have every right to choose which one they want to go to. But if that really is the case, then a social worker will have to give the patient the list of every single home health agency, every list of every home care company in that particular area. So that's not really going to happen. The social worker is maybe going to give him or her a list of maybe 10 to 20. And so that's what you want to be, is you want to be in that mix, in that list of the 10 to 20 potential home health agencies that the social worker is picking. Yes, the patient has a choice, but the social worker has the choice to which names to put in those lists that they can actually choose from. Okay, so it is very much important for you to actually work with the social worker. So, one story I got is I was working with this company, and the owner said, well, we have problems getting in because the social worker says the physician makes all the decision, and we actually end up having a meeting with the social worker and the administrator the very next day. I set up the appointment, and when we got the appointment, I asked the social worker point blank, and I said, I understand that you would say that the physician chooses which home health agency the patient to go to, but I'm also for sure that the physician does not refer every single patient to a particular home health agency. Would you say that the physician chooses typically 50% of the time on which agency to go to, and the social worker said yes. Actually, the physicians typically choose around 40% of the time. So that's the funny part, is the owner of this agency thought that the physician was choosing 100% of the time. We clarified it and found out that 60% of the time the social worker does the assistance and helping, to be able to help the patient figure out which home health agency to go to. And so, by me saying that, then I told the social worker that's exactly what we want. We understand that the physician has a lot of right to do that. You want to make sure you please them. What do I need to do to get our agency to be part of that 60% choice? And then by asking that question, the social worker then let us know what we needed to know in order to be preferred to be used or listed into that list. So you have to understand that these people are the ones that we want to be able to target. Now, how do we get their names? And the reason why you want to have the names of all these people before you walk in, it just makes it a lot easier and it gives you more command. Because just imagine when you walk in cold and you don't know who you need to speak to, and you say, I would like to speak to the administrator. Right there alone, that gatekeeper is thinking, oh, so you really don't have an appointment. Oh, you don't really know anybody here. So it would be better if you could walk in and you say, yes, I would like to see John, please. If you're thinking about the administrator. Never use the last name. I always use the first name. I would like to speak to John. Is he in? Because what I'm doing there is I'm just trying to get into the mix and get past. Because if they hear me say the first name, the first thing that comes into their head is that, oh, this guy knows John. Okay? So that breaks one of those internal objections of them thinking right away that I'm a salesperson or I'm soliciting, as they may say. All right? Another way to do it, to make it a lot easier for you, is I always believe in doing weekend warrior work, right? Weekend warrior works, meaning this is when I do data gathering, and this is when I actually try to dive deep into facilities before I start marketing in the weekdays. And so in the weekends, that's the typical time when I'll actually make a phone call and do a cold call in all these facilities, okay? I'll make these cold calls and try to get all the information I can. And then I would spend another day driving, and this is sometimes I'll do it on a Sunday, okay, Saturday or Sunday. And what I'll do is I'll use my geographic mapping with Google and put all the different home health, different nursing homes or sites that I'm trying to attack. And what I'll do is I will drive to every single one of them. And typically, a lot of these nursing homes, rehab facilities are pretty much all in one area. And what I'll do is I'll actually drive to each one of them, walk in. I'll leave them some information, so that when I do a follow-up phone call or a follow-up visit, I can say, hey, you know what, I left some information. I just want to follow up if you were able to read it, okay, so that I'm not lying, okay. And what I'll do is I'll just grab all the business cards that I can get that's in the front desk, that allows me to be able to start finding out the social workers, administrators, and if the names of the people of the job descriptions, like I told you earlier, they don't have the business cards, I'll ask for it. If they don't have it, then I can ask them for the name, So that allows me to be able to gain all the information so that when I do a marketing blitz on a weekday, that allows me to be able to have ammunition, the names, okay, and positions. Also, if I need to as well, I can then begin my email strategies, and we go through a whole email strategy presentation follow-up in another video series. But it's important to be able to grab some emails as well, because if I can grab the email of these potential referral sources or power partners, I can start emailing them directly and giving them information or educational-based marketing information about my organization as it goes. And if you are not able to get the email, let's say, for example, the administrator, but you have the email of the director of nursing, what's funny is typically by you looking at the email, you'll figure out what the email is of the administrator if you have their full name. So I've seen it where somebody's email will be the first initial, last name at the company's website. And if that's the case, I know for a fact that the administrator's email address will be the same exact way, his first initial and his last name put together. So this allows me to be able to generate and create a list and for my email marketing strategies if I'm reaching out to them. So, the weekends are an amazing time to be able to data gather, get all this information from that. once I have the names of these facilities, then I can start breaking things down a little bit more further, right? So we enter that into our black book, or whatever you want to call it, your CRM. And then I start looking into LinkedIn, so I can pull up the company's name in there. So if I write in the rehab facility's name in there and do a search within my area, then I can also, under that, will see the people that works for that company. And so that allows me to dive deeper into the person as well and figure them out. And so that's another way I can actually reach out and send them some information as well about my organization. But LinkedIn is an amazing platform to be able to find the people that you want when it comes to business, okay? Now, Facebook is another thing that I use a lot when it comes to diving deep into these people. And I'll spend maybe 5 minutes per person, or even less than that. And what I'm just trying to figure out is, can I figure out a little bit more about them, something about them that is more personal. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, Michael, that is spying on people, that is kind of being stalkerish. Well, that's what we do as marketers and salespeople, is we have to kind of cross the line or be right in the gray area of almost stalking, because we are going to try to get them to make the decision to use our services. And in the end, when we had this one video series, we talked about, creating a sales idea and how to be able to sell your agency and your company. One of the videos we had in there was where we talked about creating a different mindset. And another thing we have in there is creating a sales process and research. And this is pretty much part of all that. Facebook is something that we can use to our advantage, right? And so looking at that, gathering information, it allows you to become a better person and a better marketer. So imagine you walking into a facility, you already have the names, you already have ideas on where they worked before, positions that they've actually held, and also by looking at their Facebook, figuring out what are the things that they like. What are do they like to go on vacations? Do they like a particular sports team? Do they like a particular food? Okay, these are things that you can create what we call conversation starters with a lot of people. And so it's very much important for you to be able to gather this information to make you guys a more successful marketer. So that pretty much targets the information that I wanted to share with you regarding finding out about the people on who you're going to be dealing with within the organization. The important people that you should know, that you should have an idea on, okay, in order to become successful when you start walking into these facilities, okay? These are the research that needs to happen. I know a lot of marketers that don't even want to bother doing this research, but guess what? They're going to end up having to do this research eventually when they walk into a facility. Why is that? Because they need to say, hey, I need to speak to an administrator. I would like to speak to the social worker. But guess what? Right? And you're going to have to do the introduction, the beginning phase of trying to build a relationship. Right? So the first things first is, to be able to greet them. Right? But imagine if you can greet them knowing who they are already. That brings you and gives you pretty much an upper hand. So that is pretty much the ending of this particular video in regards who to target within the facility. Let's go ahead and move on to the next video.